Hello, everyone. Welcome. We're just letting people in, and we're going to start in a minute or two, if you don't mind just being a little bit patient with us for a moment or two as everyone makes their way into the room. Okay, maybe I'll just start by welcoming everyone. Thank you for being here. And especially big thanks to our expert participants, Dee, Noma, Lucian, who are here to answer everyone's questions about the request for an advisory opinion that was submitted to the African Court on state obligations in relation to climate change. But a special thanks to all of you for coming in. We've had, as we mentioned in the invitation, lots of questions about the advisory opinion request and about the both the sort of technical and substantive side of submitting an amicus brief. And while we've been trying to answer those questions as they've come in, we thought it would be really useful to just give people a chance to be in the room and hear each other's questions and ask us questions that maybe you hadn't thought of to ask, but that might come up later. A note to say that there is a Q&A box enabled. Chat is also enabled, so you should be able to write questions if you would rather do it that way. You can also turn on your mic or turn on your camera if you would like to ask a question that way. Oh, see, we've got a mic on immediately. So please feel free to do that. Just a note to say that we are recording and transcribing this event. Because it's a Q&A session, we're not planning to release that recording as we did with our previous event. It's more for kind of reference and for information purposes. For our internal purposes. So if anyone wants to, if anyone's concerned about that recording or that transcription, not to worry about it. Please feel free to ask your questions. It won't be publicly published, although what we might do is take some of the questions and answers from the transcript and share them in an information sheet, for example, that will be anonymized. So that's my introduction. I've probably forgotten to say something. But our idea is just at this point really to open the floor for questions, and if everyone's feeling a little shy, we've got a couple of commonly asked questions that we can start with. But please feel free to raise a hand or to post a question in the Q&A or in the chat. Maybe to begin with, Zee, would you like to just introduce yourself and say hello? Maybe Zee's having a little trouble getting into the room. I saw he was here earlier. Samuel, I see a hand. Please go ahead.
I'll just say hello.
Oh, hi, thank you, Sam. Thank you. Maybe to get us started, unless Lucian or Norma, either of you would like to say some hello words before we begin, or anyone else from the platform or from Palu?
Sure, Dina. I don't see anyone from Palu just as yet. Hi, everyone. My name is Nomasango Masiemoyo. I am the coordinator of what's called the Environmental Lawyers Collective for Africa, which is an initiative based at Natural Justice. And as you know, Natural Justice is one of the organizations that has been supporting the ACP as well as PALU with the AO process and ultimately making the final filing in Arusha earlier on this year. I think May it was of this year. It's really great to be here today. I think Dina mentioned the fact that there's been so much enthusiasm and support for this process is really great to see. I think especially from different types of stakeholders. This is not a process just for legal minds. A lot of academics and scientists have sort of put up their hands and elected to support the process. A number of civil society organizations have been at the forefront of initiating and supporting the vision of the AO as far back as I think Dina and Alfred have spoken to, the fact that this has been years in the making. So it's really great to be here today. And yeah, I'm really looking forward to some of the discussions that we might have and just soundboarding where we're all at in our individual capacities when it comes to this final stretch and on the lead up to the 3rd of December. Yeah, Lucian, do you want to add on?
No, that's pretty much everything. And just, yeah, it really is a critical moment. We know that Africa is being targeted for a huge expansion on oil and gas and other industries. And I think some clarity around the climate obligations around states, specifically in Africa, and support and managing the corporations that are looking to invest in Africa, that this advisory opinion really becomes critical in finding out how do we manage this. So it's, as Norma said, really an opportune time. I'm just very excited to support and answer any questions that we can today. Thanks, Dina.
Thanks all. So I'm seeing some questions coming into the Q&A. I did try and enable the Q&A so everyone can see the questions as they come in, and I hope you can. Let me know if you can't. But in the meantime, I think I'll start reading out a few of them so that we can answer them as you go. The first question: has anyone applied for an extension of time? Is it confirmed that we're only expected to deliver a short application to be admitted at this stage with more detailed submissions to follow? Does anyone particularly want to answer that question?
Yeah, happy to take that one. Yes, there have been extension times requested. I'm not sure if those applicant names would like to be mentioned, but it was some of the observers and some of the governments, I believe, as well, have made applications. So we have yet to hear from the court. So we're not sure if those extensions of time have been accepted.
We have, because we have information that at least one state has requested an extension of time. We're very hopeful that the court will grant one. But as Lucian says, we don't have, we've not had a response. And as far as I'm aware, no one who's submitted any papers to the court has had any responses yet. So if you are in that situation, that seems to be the situation for everyone. Then the next part of that question: is it confirmed we're only expected to deliver a short application to be admitted at this stage with more detailed submissions to follow? I think the kind of short answer to that is there are two possible ways that you could go about this. So you could just request admission as an amicus at this point, and that short application should include at least an indication of your expertise, and also some indication of what you intend to include in a more detailed submission. So that could be what you submit at this point. Option 2 is to submit both the request to be admitted and the more detailed brief at the same time. So if you are not yet ready to submit the more detailed brief, then I think we would recommend at this point, since it is quite late, given the deadline that we're currently all working with, I think our recommendation would be to get in your application to be admitted as an amicus now. Even if your more detailed brief is not ready. But if your more detailed brief is ready, you could actually submit them both at the same time.
Yeah, and maybe just to add one more, just from like a strategic perspective, you you know obviously you'll be bound by your application if it's the shorter summary one, but it does give you a little bit more time because once you've been accepted, you then have an opportunity to make further submissions. So, if there's further information or more research that you want to add that you might have thought after the fact, doing it that way gives you a little bit more leeway to adding those extra bits that you might have thought of after making the submission.
Thank you for that question. The next question I see is, if we submitted a request for leave to file an amicus and have not heard from the court, I assume we'll go ahead and file the amicus on 3rd December. Any advice around this? Does anyone want to take this question?
I see Z is online. I don't know if Z, you want to take this one.
Seems like his
Z,
mic has a couple of issues. Z, are you there?
I can see he's
Yeah.
here, but he doesn't seem to have a microphone.
Function.
He might be having some technical problems. Z says
Maybe
he's speaking. We're not hearing you.
Maybe it
Let
would
me
be best to type your answer in the chat so long, but I think the sort of a knee-jerk reaction to that question would be, first of all, you could reach out to the registrar and sort of sorry, it's pinging. You could reach out and just sort of find out what the status is, given the fact that you've already made an attempt to apply for an extension. But to be on the safe side, I would say that you should try as much as possible to intend to submit within the required timelines, as we've discussed them. Yes, I think Z also has just confirmed that. Check with the registrar first, but I think to just be on the conservative side, don't not submit anything when the time arises.
Yeah.
And then be caught lacking. I think something else also that I've sort of seen from the number of previous processes, AO processes that have happened before the court, is that the filing of an amicus is really supposed to be about giving clarity to some of the arguments or the views that have already been submitted in the main petition or application. And it has to come from a very objective perspective. So even in the writing, I think it has to be quite independent. It shouldn't feel like you are leaning one side or another, um, and sort of quite biased in your writing, but rather just sort of giving clarity from the perspective of your expertise. So it's not an advocacy opportunity, but rather sort of assisting the court with your expertise. So just for those organizations that might be filing amicus, and those amicus briefs are not necessarily legal or technical, it's really important to note that it shouldn't really revolve around advocacy type of statements. Yeah.
Having said that, especially for those of you in the room who are working with or representing community-based organizations or activists or human rights defenders, I think we would encourage you to share testimony and experience. We can't know how the court is going to react to that, but we think there's value in having those voices before the court. But Norma's right that the court generally sees the role of friends of the courts as kind of bringing more information for them to decide the request in front of them. Perhaps also worth noting, though, that the request, while very broadly phrased, obviously couldn't cover everything, and so if there's an issue that is maybe not explicitly mentioned in the request, those we do want the court to hear about. Sort of, for example, law of the sea maybe wasn't a big part of the request, but it might be an important thing to talk about in relation to mitigation or adaptation or impacts. And so I think that would be a useful thing to still do. So the request is a door rather than a closure. I see some hands and lots more questions coming in. Zunaida, I see your hand is up. Do you want to turn on your mic and ask us a question?
Hi, Dina. Thank you so much. And hello to everybody. So I basically have a procedural question, and I am hoping that some of the attorneys, South African attorneys on this call can answer that. And my question is, does one have to be a practicing attorney in order to submit an amicus brief? Thank you.
Thank you, Zunaida. I'm not seeing any of my colleagues. Sorry, Lucian, go ahead.
I was going to say that is a great question. I'm not sure. Maybe Z, I see Z says no. So you don't need to be a practicing attorney. But I'm not even sure if the society needs to be registered. Norma, I think anybody can make a submission. Just because you're friends of the courts, you're going to be making submissions that support the court. So I'm sure it's a lot more relaxed. Like if you're undertaking a petition, you have to do it through a law firm like Palu, who are registered as that's somebody who can make petitions on behalf of other organizations. But for friends of the court or Amicus, no.
As Z says, what's really important is to demonstrate your expertise. So you don't have to be an admitted attorney, but what you need to do is be bringing some expertise of value. So we know that a group of scientists, for example, are submitting, lots of academics are submitting, some activists are submitting.
Good morning. Yeah, good morning. How are you? Very good. Good. What's happening?
I think that wasn't directed at us. I'm just going to silence that. Sorry. Okay. Fernand, I saw your hand was up and has gone down. And maybe you raise your hand again if you still had a question that you wanted to ask. There's a question about whether there's an agreed process to exchange draft applications to be admitted to ensure alignment and complementarity. I will hand that question over to someone else, but I will just mention that we are going to have we're going to have a write shop on the 25th of November. I realize in relation to our current date, that's late, but we're going to have which will be an opportunity for Amici to come together and talk about the substantive parts of their arguments, and particularly talk about aligning their substantive briefs. Does anyone want to answer the question about an agreed process to exchange draft applications to be admitted to assure alignment and complementarity? We can also share, if anyone wants to see an example of someone else's application, we have a few that we can anonymize